begin to focus on is their obsessiveness around losing weight. They'll have little ways they measure it, like the tummy gets a little bloated and they think they've gained weight. No, their tummy's bloated from the body going through the constant purging. The tummy is retaining water. You're retaining water. And they think, oh, but look, I have this tummy pouch. I need to binge and purge some more and lose some more weight. Well, essentially what the body does, because it's a smart system, you can't fool your brain. And the smart system of the brain is the brain starts to tell all systems in the body, store fat. Let go of everything else, but store the fat. Eat the muscles of the body, and you can see the bulimics have like no muscle definition. There won't be a muscle that comes up here. Their arms are like completely straight. And what that's from is the muscle is being utilized to keep the body in place, but the brain needs all your fat. So here's your brain telling the body, forget about the body, I'm going into survival mode, and that means store fat. So a couple of the women had gone out and actually been tested, their body mass index, and they were somewhere around 28 to 30% fat.
Wow.
You know, just from altering their chemistry this way. And they're also giving themselves a huge candida overgrowth, which also drives cravings and more addiction. It's an interesting thing, Harry and I have been working with this idea of a belief in behaviors. If we have a belief that a behavior is going to give us a result, you cannot be talked out of it. You have to take that belief and disarm it at all levels in order to let it literally lay in the person's laps as having no benefit whatsoever. And as I talked about this earlier on, there's a dual strategy running here. If they really believe they need that secondary strategy to get themselves out of that first one, then that's where we have to dispel the trance, because they put themselves in this deep trance. And we have to help them come and wake up out of that trance. With the bulimic, because she lives in such a hidden and secret world, she never really tells people truly what she's feeling or what she's thinking, because her thoughts are so harsh. They're harsh on her, and they're also harsh on others. And they're so harsh, like extremely harsh. Her internal dialogue and self-hatred almost has her propelled right outside of her body. She's left her body as she's abusing it in this way. She's lost all connection to that self-love and to that spiritual self that really is her resource to help her get grounded, get centered, and get more peaceful with herself. I had one set of parents from Edmonton bring their daughter to see me, and they had 2 daughters in the family. So there's 3 women and the dad, and they were going through over $1,000 a week on food. And he said to me, the dad said to me, I live with 3 women, they all eat like birds except her. And so they'd taken to locking all the food up in the house, and they'd put her on a really short allowance, because they knew all the money they gave her, she would buy food. Ultimately, doesn't that sound like a person that's codependent and trying to control the behaviors of an addicted person? That's what they're doing. And partly the parents don't recognize this as an addiction, because it's just food, right? But it is an addiction. And when you understand that that's what's going on with your kid, then deal with your own grief around that. Recognize it didn't have anything to do with you, and that your daughter or son probably didn't even realize that it was going to have an addictive backlash on their life. And everybody drop the guilt, drop the blame, and let's just go get this kid some help. That's my view. He doesn't have time. She doesn't have to. You're going to get a prescription. You're going to get a prescription for Prozac or Effexor, and now you've added drugs to an addiction. That's partly because they don't really recognize the addictive component of bulimia. So they're running two strategies. The first one is negative self-talk and feeling bad. All of them talk to me about bad feelings. And I honestly have news for every one of them. Every human being out here has bad feelings. Everybody does. Everybody has bad things happening, and we can't avoid them. We have these little collision courses that happen along our lifetime. But they believe that none of this should be happening to them, that they shouldn't have those negative feelings. They know it's positive, that they're running it for a positive reason. Because at the end of the strategy, with the binge, they visualize it, they plan for it, releasing dopamine as they're gearing up for it. You know how that is, as you're anticipating pleasure, you know, you're getting the positive strategy being reinforced. And as soon as this starts to play out, and the longer they hold off waiting to actually do the binge and purge, the stronger they know the reaction at the end. My strategy is to help them take that negative strategy and work with it without implementing the use of the addiction or the bulimic strategy. And the bulimic strategy interrupts that one.
It has there is a positive.
Oh, totally.
intention.
Totally.
They're getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm. The place we resolved it for her was in the moment that she understood she was moving through the world rejecting. Interesting, eh? What I said to her is it's like she had her cup turned upside down so that nothing good would go in there. And of course, all the internal dialogue that she fed herself every day continued to undermine that belief she had. And so, because she had her cup turned up and nobody would put anything in, she wouldn't take any compliments from anyone, and she would not allow herself to fill her own cup. Mm-hmm. And so I literally did that with her. I reached over, took her hand, and imaginarily turned the cup upside right. She burst into tears. It was beautiful.
Wow.
And she saw it right in the moment. And there was a whole breaking of the energy around her, and she looked at me and she said, "I've been doing this to myself, haven't I?" And I went, "Yeah." I know we're kind of told not to consider ourselves as special. Religion tells us, don't think of yourself first, think of yourself last, this kind of thing. But if you're never going to put yourself first, then who will? And if you're not willing to put yourself first, then I really think anyone that you're involved with is still going to have that experience too, of you not being able to be fully present in that relationship. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not quite perfect enough. If I was just a little thinner, if I was just a little taller, maybe if I had longer hair, if my hair was thicker, then I could put myself in that relationship. You see? So women get these kind of thoughts rolling around in their head, and someone says to them, "You're beautiful just as you are." That falls off them like they've got shards out looking for that. Because I think this is totally a spiritual issue. Mm-hmm. And there's been a couple of other women who've written about bulimia and eating disorders as a religious issue. Yeah. This is the wrong tact. It's not about religions. It's about a spiritual connection that they're missing. I think that causes the brain to make the changes on its own. You know, they have to get to this place where the behavior no longer makes any sense. So long as it's resolving an issue inside them,